Hi, I'm Michael Cortese of Noble Spirit in Pittsfield, New Hampshire,
And I'm Charles Epting of HR Harmer in Manhattan.
and this is Conversations with Philatelists.
We spoke to Alex Haimann in our first episode of the podcast. He was our
True.
first guest, in large part because he helped spark both of our careers.
Mhm.
Um, and at the time, we had discussed that St. Louis was planning the first post-COVID outbreak stamp show in America, if not the world. I'm not sure. There's been a major show in the
I think
last
the
couple of
world is
months.
correct, yeah.
I believe so. And at the time, I think we were both sort of in disbelief that this could actually happen. And lo and behold, a couple of days ago, it happened.
It happened.
And Alex was actually there. He attended the show, and I think it's really exciting that he has agreed to come back on with us for this mini episode to tell us what it was like. This is actually newsworthy. I think that this
Yeah.
is the first American stamp show. So
With no further ado, Alex Haimann, founder of the Young Philatelic Leaders Fellowship.
former member of the board of vice presidents of the APS, fellow of the Royal Philatelic Society, London, goes on and on his resume and accolades in the hobby. So I'm very excited. Again, we just spoke to him not too long ago, and now we've already got him back on to
Right.
report breaking news in the hobby.
Well, that's
So
how easy it is and great it is to speak with him.
let's get our war correspondent, Alex Haimann, on the line.
All right, let's bring him in. Hi, Alex. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, glad to be back.
Um,
So this past weekend was the first major stamp show in America after this whole thing started, after the COVID-19 outbreak, and
Yeah.
you were there. You're our boots on the ground. You're our field reporter
Yeah.
from the Midwest.
Yes.
What can you tell us a little bit what it was like? Can you sort of give us a recap of what the first in-person, because and as we speak right now, the APS is holding their virtual summer show. But
Right.
what was it like to be at the first actual physical stamp show since this all started?
Yeah. Good question. So the previous one, the last one before the pandemic really started to hit the U.S. and shutdowns began, was the Garfield Perry Show in Cleveland, Ohio. That was the last one, which I did not attend, but that was the last one to take place in the United States. And the World Series of Philately shows, which are sort of the top kind of sort of 2-3 dozen shows in the country by size and number of people that come to them. Right, this show was supposed to take place in St. Louis at the end of March and was postponed, unlike a bunch of other shows sort of canceled outright and didn't postpone. This one was postponed and yes, took place Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this past weekend, the 14th, 15th, and 16th. Yeah, what kind of what would you like to know?
So obviously the capacity must have been limited, and there must have been some sort of uh, temperature check or something. What was it like arriving at the show? How long did it take for you to notice that this was not a normal pre-COVID show?
Yeah, you noticed instantly the way. So the show took place in the same hotel, same space that it always takes place in, or has for years. It's in a space that can accommodate, by the hotel's numbers, over 1,000 people standing. So obviously, when you put stamp booths in them and stamp dealer booths and exhibit frames and everything, you could not put 1,100 people in this under normal circumstances. So the way that it would work is that the area is sort of like a multi-room ballroom. They sort of take down all the walls for, is in a corridor area of the hotel. So you notice this when you come from the lobby, you sort of take a right. Instantly, you see there was a table which is never there in previous years, sort of blocking access to enter that corridor. And there was a volunteer there who, throughout the whole weekend, that would temperature check, infrared thermometer, forehead. They were wearing a mask. There was a police officer that for many years they've had uniformed police officers at the show. So that person was also masked and standing there as well. And so they take your temperature. They give you a sticker. Each day had a different color sticker, so it was an everyday temperature check. It was not just a 1 day, first day, and then you come back whenever you want.
Huh.
And then after you made it through that kind of first check area, you then went to the typical registration booth where they then did the normal registration stuff, giving you your badge to enter, and you pay your small admission fee. And then the second thing that was very different, besides everyone at that booth wearing masks also, that you would notice, is they had you fill out a waiver, both with in-depth contact details for you, the attendee, so that, of course, if a COVID instance is discovered by an attendee or a dealer, that they can easily reach out to everyone that was at the show to know that this had occurred, so they can be aware from a quarantine perspective or whatever precautions they're going to take. Yeah, so those are the check area, the masks being worn by volunteers, the waiver. Those are sort of the three big things that you notice instantly. It was impossible to get past literally the first foot of the show experience without knowing you were in a very different time.
And how were the inside the show? How were the booths set up?
Yeah, so the show had about, I don't remember the exact, let's just say a third, something like a third the number of dealers, or a third the number of dealer booths that it usually does, or 40%, something like that. So they were a little bit more spread out even when they were next to each other, but there were more spacings even between booths than usual. And in some of those spaces they had, which is also another unique feature of the show for the coronavirus pandemic era, is they had hand sanitizing, or sort of what they called sanitizing stations, which are basically additional 6 or 8 foot tables in several places throughout the show that had hand sanitizer, all free, of course, just all hand sanitizer, as well as a box of spare extra masks if you needed one, broke, something happened. So those were, but yeah, like typical years, they would have like water dispensers, did not have those. So all those things in a hotel setting that I've seen in many shows were not there. It was very much separate. And so there was a mask mandate for the whole show. So attendees, dealers, everyone had to wear them. Yeah, and they had table chairs spread out to create social distancing. The key to this is by the end, so let's say about a third the number of dealers and about a third the number of attendees, so a little bit shy of 200 attendees by the end of the show. There was never a problem. It was never a capacity issue. Even with St. Louis County, you could not have, I think you could only be up to a quarter of capacity in any given room. So we could have had up to approximately 250 or 275 people in that room. That was never an issue. I would be, even with all the dealers and dealer staff in that room, I doubt at any given moment there were more than 100 to 125 people. So it appeared, the way I've described it is it was like a very brisk, in a good way, Sunday, but every day.
Yeah.
So anyone that's been to a stamp show sort of knows that Sunday mornings and afternoons can kind of be really quiet. This was like in a space that, and it was also the size of the space made it feel so quiet because it was much more spread out with a smaller number of people. So it wasn't eerie. It was perfectly fine. You felt safe. You could easily engage with any dealer. No issues on social distancing or proximity people. Which was great. So if you came to the show and you did feel a little uneasy about it, there were very few interactions that you would have found yourself kind of closed in on an aisle. I never was in an aisle where I was like having to pass more than one person in going in any direction. Whereas sometimes at a stamp show, typical aisle, you could pass many people in it going back and forth, getting across an aisle easily. That was not an issue at all. So that all worked out very well. I'm glad they kept the space, the traditional full ballroom size. So really everyone was much more spread out. And the reaction from the dealers was, kind of jumping ahead with just lots of
that was my next question, or I guess the sort of philosophical question here. Did you talk to dealers? Did you talk to attendees?
Yeah,
and do you think and do you think this is viable moving forward? Do you think that smaller markets like St. Louis, obviously I think it'll be a long time before Chicago, San Francisco, New York have a show, but for a smaller market like St. Louis, do you think this is the first step towards is this a template for shows going forward? Do you think this is a viable model? Were the dealers happy with the way it turned out?
So yeah, so there's two elements so if I'm thinking about it, first of all, about the viable model. Let me answer that question first. Absolutely. If people can go to grocery stores and can get in that environment with the right precautions and prep by a show committee and dealer participation, we can have a stamp show. Like, I mean, I'm a believer that we can do this. It can be done safely. And I think that I don't know necessarily every detail of other things you may want to add on to the prep and what was done at the show by the St. Louis committee, but certainly at least those things: the temperature check, the waiver, the sanitizing station, moving dealer booths more apart, mask mandate for everyone, attendees and dealers inside, and being in I won't call it cartoonishly large space, something like more space than what is needed, like really build out. And a lot of venues are not having events every single weekend like they were. So I have a feeling that actually this is a template that will work for a lot of venues that are looking desperate to have events take place in at period. Additionally, the dealer feedback. So of the 21 dealers that set up, 20, the show board chairman already told me at the end that 20 of the 21 had already given their deposits for next year. So
Awesome.
the show, which is great, absolutely. So the show was successful. I'm certain every dealer's lowered expectations. They understood that you aren't gonna. This isn't gonna
You
be
take what you can get at this point.
exactly. But I would say several dealers commented to me as I was talking with them throughout different parts of the show how they were even surprised beyond the sort of lowered expectations, and several comments including things like when people came in, if they came to the show and they sat down, they spent money. They were there. They were there. It was such an intentional thing. Like coronavirus time, you don't window shop the way you did, or
Right.
just
It
wander
really
in.
it weeds out a lot of the
Yeah.
the gawkers or
It's a
the
fantastic
casual
point.
onlookers.
And that same, even that person, if you want to be an onlooker, like your view is also like, well, I don't have a lot of opportunities. Even if I want to like to look, I kind of want to look and I want to walk away with something. So I think that was very positive. Steve Taylor, who focuses on United States postal history, covers envelopes more than anything else, is based in England, and he flew all the way over. First show for him since Garfield Perry. He also said very, very happy with the results and very impressed all around. So obviously, just like any retail, any B2C, business to consumer industry, this isn't going to work at 20% or 25% capacity forever. We don't have enough volume to keep dealers that need this from an income perspective to really keep operating like this for years. But there's no doubt that if we can figure out a way to sort of set up the right mechanisms and protocol, this can be done. I think the St. Louis show, we may hopefully look back, and we're just 2 days out, so hopefully there will not be an outbreak or people will not have gotten sick, though I'm hopeful, I'm praying that will not happen and did not, as a result of the show, at all happen. But I do believe that if show committees are game to be innovative and to think about what are the different steps, there's lots of guidance now on different steps that you can put into place for having in-person experiences and events, both by CDC, state and county health departments. It's all about the will to do it. And I think that dealers are the lifeblood of the show circuit in the United States and in Europe. I mean, the United States, everywhere, but the United States for sure. And it's critical that we start reconnecting this in-person experience, even in the coronavirus era, in the safest possible way, but that we do it. Otherwise, our choice is wait 2 years? Don't have a stamp show for 2 years? I mean, the choices just are not valid. And dealers were commenting about how even them being together was a way for them to buy and sell with each other. There's a huge amount of commerce and sort of fluid that goes through the pipes of the business when dealers are able to have that interaction with each other, again, which is most done live than in a virtual format.
Right.
It's fascinating to hear about this. I've been dying to. I wanted to come to the show myself, and unfortunately, just couldn't swing it with work. But to have a field reporter like yourself, it's really fascinating to hear.
What's funny, the fun thing is, I was saying to someone in the middle, 2 or 3 months ago, and I realized it wasn't realistic in May when things were really just sort of tremendous, much more uncertain than they are now. Just saying, give me a VFW hall, give me anything, give me wherever it is, put some stamp dealers in it. I don't care where it is. I'll go and I'll buy, I'm going to buy stuff. I'm going to go and be there. And anyway, so it was just way different. And you're really at that very high level in terms of facilities. The hotel was great. And the committee talked about the hotel was a great partner in helping them orchestrate all of the safety protocols. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be very trying, but I'm hoping that the show will be a model, at least for show committees around the country, to pause before they just cancel their shows.
Right.
Say, could we do something? How could we do it? Because I think just giving up makes no sense. And everyone would say, we've got to, we're three younger people, on the odds, coronavirus is not as big of an issue for our age demographic. But interesting, two collectors that were there who were well known, but I'll have them be nameless, have, one's older gentlemen, and definitely would, by every other person's measure, would say these are not the people you want to be out and about, basically said, look, we're older, yes, and we're going to take precautions, but we need to get out. Like, in some respects, there's a mental health detriment that is taking place that they were expressing to me. They were saying, this is how we feel, that with the right safety protocols, this is really okay. And it's even better for us on the mental health side to finally get out and see people that we know. That really struck me, because for the same reasons I really wanted to get out and see you guys and other friends of mine in the philatelic world. I have other outlets and I don't feel as constrained. Whereas I can imagine, older collectors or collectors that are just more isolated by whatever isolated means for them, that this is such a huge outlet for them. Just being able to be in a place with other stamp collectors, even if you're social distance, even if you're not having the same camaraderie interaction that you had before.
Yeah, it sounds like it was really well done, and it was done safely, and it's a great model going forward for other shows. Exactly.
I think you're exactly right when you say now people hopefully will have a much harder time just canceling outright. Now, they at least have something to point to and say it's not easy. It's going to take a lot of work. It may be expensive. It may be a headache, but it's doable. And I think that's.
And the dealers are in. That's the thing is, if this proved actually that there was a hardcore group of dealers, even if they were willing to take a chance on, including one flying over. We had people coming from California, Delaware, Illinois. I mean, there were 9 states represented and the United Kingdom. So dealers came, and collectors came too. A collector flew up from New Orleans. Another one drove 9 hours from Michigan. Another one came in from other sides of Missouri and Kansas. So there were people that were willing to be on the front line, as it were, of the first to interact with the stamp show in the pandemic era. I think that this will only create more comfort if the right protocols are put into place for more dealers to come back and to be part of shows with the right precautions. And so the first outing is so critical to break the ice and make people feel more comfortable. So yeah, it was interesting. It was obviously my home show, or I live here in St. Louis, so this was easy for me. I'm proud that the committee did it. I'm not on the committee, but my significant applause to all of them for putting this on, and going to the St. Louis Stamp Expo website to learn more about the show and to see the list of the committee members that put a tremendous amount of time and effort in. So we'll see. At this point, there's a lot of shows in the fall. Sescal in California is, I believe at this point, is still on. So we'll see other ones that activate. I'm hoping 2021 has mostly a full complement, assuming that coronavirus doesn't become even bigger problem, or the spikes are even more outrageous, or other discoveries that make it where it would truly not be responsible to have it at all. But I think there's clearly if people can get on airplanes with masks, like there are much closer knit, even with no middle seat occupant, there are much closer knit interactions that people are having, and we don't have massive outbreaks in those environments, supermarkets. So we have to be able to find a way to do it in the stamp world.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex, thank you so much. This has been fascinating. We were really looking forward to hearing an update.
Yeah,
again, really glad to have you back on.
Yeah, and thank you so much for taking the time out.
Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You guys.
Bye. That was fantastic.
It's exciting on the one hand to hear any update from the show, and on the other hand to hear that it was so successful. I'm happy and fascinated. I feel like we're these bystanders watching what's going on from afar, and I think it sounds very promising. And hopefully you and I can get to a show soon. We can do one of these episodes recorded from a stamp show.
Yeah.
Because it sounds to me like it's not easy. It's not cheap, let's be honest. It's not efficient necessarily. But despite all that, it's doable. It's not just doable, it's been done.
Yeah.
It's no longer hypothetical. It's no longer theoretical. It's been done. Everyone else can learn
like you said, it's a working model for the future shows. They can take from that. They can see what worked. They can build on it, and they can remove some things that might not be necessary.
I feel like we needed this one. When this virus broke out, no show wanted to be the first to cancel. Everyone was sort of hesitant. Then one show cancels and the dominoes all fall. Everybody cancels. Yeah. I feel like it's the same thing starting back up, where it's very nerve-wracking. I'm not a show organizer, but I've spoken to enough people where I can imagine that you don't...
Heard from Wade.
Exactly. Wade knows as well as anyone. you don't want to be the first one, because what if something goes wrong? God forbid. What if
Right.
So I think the fact that someone did it is really a fantastic step in the right direction, and hopefully a sign of what's to come.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Maybe they could venture out into outdoor shows. I don't know if they've ever had an outdoor stamp show before.
It would be, you need to make sure that the weather was good, obviously, to protect the product. But
No, of course.
an outdoor, almost like a farmer's market.
Yeah, yeah, you get a giant tent. I'm sure that's almost as expensive as
I've seen photos from the turn of the 19th century.
like a World's Fair.
Back over 100. No, in Paris there were outdoor stamp forces.
Yes.
I have a postcard somewhere from like 1899 or 1901 or something, where the dealers would actually set up outside.
Yeah.
So maybe we have to
It's been
go
done
back
before.
to that model. Yeah. That might be kind of fun. Some fresh air and Philatelic. There's your name.
Just tags every 3 minutes. I like it.
Great to hear from Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Really excited. Hopefully, as we build up this podcast, we can get more boots on the ground in other countries, other states, and be able to report on news like this more often. Because it's, again, as a bystander, I'm very interested to hear what's going on out there.
Yeah, correspondence all over the world would be great. Just connections where we can talk to people about how the hobby's progressing now.
How it reopens.
Yes.
Obviously, every country. It's sort of like when you watch the different baseball leagues. The Korean baseball league reopened before MLB. The hobby is going to come back to life at different paces.
Yeah.
And I think it would be great to get different voices from around the world reporting on what's happening.
So that people know, because I wasn't there, and if I hadn't spoken with you weren't there. If we hadn't spoken with Alex, we wouldn't know until we speak firsthand with someone who's there. So it's always interesting and important to talk to someone who was there, getting it firsthand reporting rather than hearing it through the grapevine of I heard they had masks.
I saw a couple of I saw a couple of Facebook comments, little one-liners, and that's fine. But to actually be able to grill Alex on what happened, to have him walk you through step by step. You show up, you get your temperature tested, you go to this table, you go to that table. It's going to beat reading a Facebook comment.
Well, you know what it's going to do is it's going to instill a security in the people who might be considering going to other shows. Here's Alex saying that this one is safe. This is what they did, the procedures that they followed, and other people might listen.
You're not going in blindly.
Yes,
you're not,
exactly.
They're going to take my temperature. That's fine. You're not going to be going into completely in the dark.
Right.
So I love these again, mini episodes where we touch on a particular news topic or something. Let's do more of these. This is fun. Sounds great. People want to listen to us. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbean. Podbean. Is this our 5th episode? Are we on Spotify now?
I think we're on Spotify now. I'm gonna have to double check, but I think we're on Spotify. Big one, obviously, YouTube. Email at Philatelypodcast at gmail.com. So this is fun. Again, let's not limit ourselves to full-length interview episodes. Let's do these little bite-sized ones too. It's just as much fun. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Charles, I'll see you next time. Absolutely. We'll talk again in a couple of days with our next feature-length conversation with a philatelist. Have we mentioned who that is yet? I think we did on the last episode, but let's let people know again in case they're listening to this. Yes. So this mini episode is going to be airing probably the 20th or 21st. It's the 18th here today. We are in the past currently. And the next episode airing on the 24th is going to be Dana Geyer, the ASDA, and the one right after that is going to be Graham Beck of Exploring Stamps on YouTube. One of the people who has really taken to social media and modern technology and been able to use that to promote the hobby. I think he's been as successful as anyone at utilizing 21st century technology to promote a 19th century hobby. Exactly. So it'll be fun to have him on. I enjoy his videos. I know you enjoy his videos. So it'll be fun to have a chat with him, with Graham Beck after Dana Geyer. Yes. Looking forward to all of that. Absolutely. Michael, fun as always. We'll talk again soon. Yeah. See you next time. Sounds good.